Completely safe. All characters adults. Sometimes life surprises you in the quietest moments. And that's exactly what happened the evening I agreed to help Aaron with a small project he'd been struggling with for weeks. He wasn't a kid from next door or a student or anything inappropriate. He was 22. A young man from the community center where I volunteered twice a week, thoughtful, reserved, and carrying a kind of gentleness that most people forced themselves to hide. I'd just come in from watering the potted lavender along my porch when his message buzzed on my phone. "If you free, could you help me with that writing assignment you mentioned?" I hesitated at first, not because I didn't want to help, but because something about the way he asked felt heavy, like he needed more than academic guidance. Still, I said yes. I made chamomile tea, changed into a soft grey knit sweater, and set the dining room table with notebooks, pens, and a simple calmness that always came over me in the early evening. When he arrived, carrying a stack of books and a nervous smile, I could tell he'd rehearsed this moment. He thanked me quietly and stepped inside like he was trying not to disturb the air. We sat at the table, the last bit of daylight filtering through the curtains, leaving gold patterns across the wooden floor. As he flipped open his notebook, I noticed the way his hands trembled, slightly not with fear, but with the weight of wanting to do well. His assignment was simple: write a personal reflection on someone who had influenced his growth. But as he tried to explain, his voice wavered, and I realized this wasn't writer's block. This was someone carrying too much on the inside and not knowing how to say any of it out loud. So instead of pushing him into the work, I asked a simple question: "What's really on your mind?" He exhaled slowly, eyes lifting to meet mine with an honesty that caught me off guard. He began to talk not about the assignment at first, but about how he'd always felt like he moved through the world unnoticed, unheard, as if people saw only the quietness and not the depth beneath it. And as he spoke, something in his voice softened, like a knot loosening after years of being pulled tight. I listened, not because I had to, but because something in me recognized that loneliness. I'd known it myself once, long before I learned how to fill my own silence with meaning. I told him gently that being quiet wasn't the same as being invisible, and that the world needed people who felt deeply, even if it didn't always know how to acknowledge them. He looked at me then, truly looked, and there was something in his expression that made the room feel warmer. Not romantic, just human, grateful, open. We worked for a while after that, but it wasn't really about the assignment anymore. It became a conversation about life, about dreams, about the strange ache of growing up and realizing how fragile people can be. At one point he paused, pencil hovering over the page, and said softly, "You talk to me like what I think matters." I felt my breath hitch just a little, because I hadn't realized how rare that had been for him. I told him the truth: "It does matter, you matter." He lowered his gaze for a moment, perhaps to steady himself, and then continued writing with a new kind of clarity, as if the permission to feel had opened something inside him. When we finished, he closed his notebook slowly, almost reluctantly, like he didn't want the moment to end. "Can I ask you something?" he murmured. I nodded. "Do you ever wish someone listened to you the way you listen to others?" The question struck something deep and tender inside me, a truth I rarely acknowledged. Every day, I admitted. He nodded, and in that quiet exchange, I felt an understanding pass between us two people, different in age, in place, in life, but connected by the simple human longing to be seen. As he stood to leave, he surprised me by giving me a gentle, sincere hug. Not rushed, not uncertain, just honest. I hugged him back, feeling the weight of something meaningful but unspoken. "Thank you," he whispered, and walked toward the door with the calmness of someone who had set something heavy down. After he left, I lingered by the window, watching him walk down the street beneath the deep blue sky. I didn't feel loneliness. I felt something else: purpose, warmth, the quiet comfort of knowing that even small connections can shift the rhythm of a person's life. The next day, he returned with a printed copy of his finished assignment. He handed it to me shyly, and when I read it later, I found myself stunned. He hadn't written about a celebrity or a mentor from years ago, or someone distant and untouchable. He'd written about me, about the way our conversations made him feel understood for the first time in years. About how being listened to made him realize he had value beyond the noise of the world. And as I read his words, a warmth bloomed in my chest. Not pride, not ego, but a recognition that maybe I had needed that connection just as much as he did. That evening, I sat with a cup of tea in the quiet of my living room and realized something. Sometimes the most unexpected people remind us of the parts of ourselves we forget to nurture. Sometimes a single moment of honesty becomes the turning point we didn't know we were waiting for. And as I opened a blank notebook, one I hadn't touched in years, I felt a soft, steady certainty rise within me. The story wasn't just his or mine. It was something shared, simple, human, and it was only just beginning.